Freetown City Mayor Yvonne Aki-Sawyerr. Good morning, ma'am. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Vivian. Good morning, Samuel. Good morning, viewers. As always, it's a pleasure to be here.
The impact of climate change is felt across. How did we arrive at saying perhaps it's more impactful or harder in the urban areas?
Okay, so when people think of climate change, most times what we talk about is flooding, we talk about landslides, we talk about extreme weather. But what fewer people are aware of and have been tracking is the fact that the temperatures are increasing. 30 so years ago, when climate change became a topic, the expression that you heard most often was global warming. And indeed, this has happened. NASA, in their report at the earliest part of this year, has now established that 2024 was the hottest year on record. And it's going to continue to happen because, sadly, the greenhouse gas emissions have not stopped. And so the heating the warming up is continuing. That warming affects the oceans. So you see coral reefs dying, you see species dying, but even that heating of the ocean results in more moisture in the environment, which is why we see the hurricanes, the typhoons, and so on. And your question was, I just wanted to give a little bit of background, but then your question was, why do we feel it's more severe in urban areas? The temperature increase is typically more severe in urban areas because of what we call the heat island effect. The fact that typically in an urban area you have less tree cover. You have concrete. Concrete reflects heat. It absorbs heat. So you basically, and in our context with our informal settlements, you're talking about corrugated iron sheeting. So just think of what it will be like. When iron is under the sun, you touch it, it's hot. So for us in the urban settings, it's more severe. It's more impactful on the residents, on the physical bodies present. And another thing that's really common, although it happens in the rural areas as well, but for us here in Freetown, over 60%, 70% of our population are outdoor workers. Yes, of course, it's probably the same in the rural because they're farmers. But with us, you have the traders. You have women sitting in the sun all day long. And we also have the added unfortunate issue of water scarcity. So when we did Transform Freetown, Transforming Lives, and we did our engagement with communities, the number one priority, when we engaged 4,800 of our residents, the number one priority across Freetown was water. Access to water. So the combination of rising temperatures, challenges with water access, from a health perspective, last night I got home late. I got into bed, and there's always a bottle of water next to my bed. And I felt really thirsty, and I took a drink of water, and it just occurred to me that, look, you can do this, but there are people who can't afford to buy water. There are people who having a sachet of water is just something that's a luxury for them. And as the temperature rising, that need for water increases. The absence of water leads to medical conditions. You have, kidney failure, dehydration because of lack of water. And, I was at a meeting on heat in the US a couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago, in Miami, which is, known for being a hot city. And they're one of the heat champions. There are 5 of us who started this, putting attention to heat about 3-4 years ago. And in that meeting, they were talking about, because they collect the data. Sadly, we don't have the ability to collect the data in the hospitals, but they in the hospitals are collecting data to see the number of admissions and the number of deaths which are heat related. And the statistics were really, really, eye-opening. It's now become known as the silent killer of climate change.
We know through the projection of those who follow the weather conditions globally and the impact of climate change as it goes, that it's not expected to get better. The projection is it would worsen. But how does a conference like this help Sierra Leone?
Yes, that's a good question. And everything we do now is designed to say, if it's not getting better, what can we do to protect ourselves? What can we do to make life better for our residents, make life safer, and do the best we can to be resilient in the face of the changing reality of what the globe is going to be or what the globe is becoming. So this conference is, as you said in the introduction, it's co-hosted by Freetown City Council and our very, very good partners, Climate Resilience for All. Kathy Buffin-McLeod, who is the founder and the CEO of Climate Resilience for All, is a really good friend, and she's the first person who brought this heat issue to my attention. She's been a heat champion for about 5 years now. She's really been doing the research, bringing the data, and now and in fact, she was responsible for the creation of this initial heat climate champions group of five mayors, 5 cities, including ourselves, Miami, Athens. You have to remember who the other 2 are now. But with that focus, she engaged all of those cities and came up with a proposition which we bought into and have implemented, that we all appoint a chief heat officer, someone whose job it is to keep an eye on this issue and to do what we're going to be doing in the conference on the 6th, which is raising awareness, collecting data, designing mitigating interventions. So we've made interventions, some of which have worked, some of which haven't. It's kind of a learning process. So for example, one of the things we did, which we're really proud of, and which the same climate change blew away, are the market shade covers, which provided shade from women in Congo Market, Calabar Town Markets, Bombay Streets Market. What we hadn't bargained for was the extreme rain. So a storm literally took the covers off. But we've learned. But we know it's important. We know the difference it made. So we're redoing a design now. We're using a kind of fabric mix, a stronger material, which is an engineering design which will withstand the heavy wind that we had. So that's something that comes from this engagement of having this focus. Another thing that we've done, of course, is our cooling corridors, using our tree planting now, thinking about not just stabilizing slopes, protecting water, but actually having corridors where tree on this side, tree on that side, giving you the shade. We also experimented with cool roofs. And in Crew Bay community, we were able to do, I think it was like 100 homes, where with an organization called MIR, we used a white-colored, sun-reflecting material that you place over the existing roof, and we saw the temperatures drop within them. We actually had thermometers and measured. We did heat urban mapping, so we went around the city over a period of a week. We worked with the atmospheric and the meteorological department in the US. They came with the equipment we needed. And we're able now, we can show you maps, and you'll see them on the 6th, maps of where the hottest areas are in Freetown. So we know now that these are the areas where we've got to concentrate our interventions.
But
so by
how much public information are you doing for the residents in these areas as well to understand the projection for that area and sort of equipping them with the information on what to do, how to protect themselves, their skin? How much public information?
So we've done and we continue to do what we call Beat the Heat campaigns. So you may have seen us on the streets giving out information, explaining to people about, we have a tendency to sometimes put fashion over comfort, and you'll see people wearing very thick clothing. It depends on your body. You know, some people are able to deal with it, you know, but with others, especially with little children, sometimes they're wrapped up so much, and that can give them heat stress. We see people getting heat rash, people getting heat stroke. So we are doing those campaigns. We're also working. We work very closely. Eugenia, our Chief Heat Officer, works very closely with the meteorological department here, the Sierra Leone Meteorological Office, and they jointly. She's been part of promoting messages, promoting you sharing the temperature levels, what the projections are. And as we come to this conference, we'll be sharing not only with our regional partners, but also with our Sierra Leone leaders. So from Bo to Kono to Port Loko, everyone's invited. Can I just take a moment and tell you some of the things we've done?
Yep, we'll come to that.
Sure.
But again, as you already mentioned, the projections by NASA and even the speculations as to 2024, and even in Sierra Leone, let's localize the conversation. Even in Sierra Leone, just a couple of weeks ago, the Meteorological Agency released their seasonal forecast, for which, according to them, it speculated that there will be huge challenges in regards to, of course, above heat temperature, and even the associated risk to same. In your earlier submission, you did mention the challenges, the problems already. Human activities could be one, and the minimal nature of trees around the capital, Freetown. But again, what are the immediate steps to be taken? Over time, we've seen rapid tree planting engagements by council and other bodies. But what are the immediate steps?
So one of the things that I mentioned earlier on is the importance of water in this context. And I've said that, you know, it's the priority for our residents. So on that, in that regard, I actually just confirmed with my colleague, we have already handed over 8 water kiosks across 5 communities. We're doing another, 8, 12, 25. No, it would be more than that. We've done 13. We're doing another 12 this week. And these are boreholes, you know, big boreholes with water treatment facilities, filter, and I'll make sure I'm at one of them on Monday. So AYV, please come and cover it. I know you covered the last ones, but you will see that we are making water available to thousands of people through these interventions. So there are 12 more coming on stream by the end of next week, and then by the end of the year we'll have another 45 and another 89 boreholes, 45 done with Blue Peace and 44 done with the World Bank under our Russell P project. So that's a practical step, making water, bringing water to communities, reducing the time that people will take searching for water, reducing the suffering that people experience when they don't get the water, and making sure that it's community owned and community managed. And these particular ones, the first 25, are all women managed, and like I said, they have water filtration, so it's drinking quality water, it's potable water, it's not just, you know, untreated, it's actually treated. Another thing that's really important in the context of this is what you talked about just now. So Freetown, the tree town is continuing. And as we speak, we have cleared space in Crew Bay where we're planting 75,000 mangroves. And that's planting is starting on Wednesday. It's taken a while to do the clearing because, as you can imagine, Crew Bay is a community that it has some challenges. And I had to personally go there last week because things that you don't find in other communities, we planted I think it was 180,000 mangoes, 120,000 mangoes in 120,000 mangoes in Ojuku, and you can go and see them. They look so good. It's so good to see them coming up. But in Crew Bay, we came across a problem we hadn't anticipated: the presence of the pigs. So basically, we got to a stage where the CBO lead, the community people, called an emergency meeting and said, okay, let's talk to the pig owners, because the pigs, if we plant now, the pigs will eat.
They feed on the.
They'll eat them, or they'll destroy them. So that was but you know, this is where this is what you call community ownership and engagement. We came together, we said, and the chief said to them, there are how many, 30, 40 people doing this business. You can put your pigs in pig pens, but there are almost 200 young people who will have jobs planting the mangroves. So this is not going to be something we're going to
Her Worship, I could sense your passion to see that the teeming population of Freetown gets access to safe drinking water. But again, with the heat you've just mentioned, have you also thought of its impacts? Because for the mere fact there is heat, the water level will go down.
So that is why it is so important, Samuel. You know, I've watched with interest over the last 4 years. We started in 25 years. So it's 5 years now. It was the 3rd of January 2020. We launched Freetown the Tree Town with a plan to plant 1 million trees and grow them, make sure they survive. And I've heard people say, all day you talk about tick, all day like tick no more. Well, you know, the importance of trees cannot be overstated. As you've said, with this sort of heat, if you don't have trees around your water areas, the water will dry up. You need trees to protect your catchment areas. You need trees to protect your reservoirs. You need trees to protect your dams, even the small streams. Go to any community that used to have a stream and doesn't have it anymore. Guess what you'll see? Deforestation around that. You'll see urbanization. You'll see that what people refer to as development has actually meant that the water sources have dried up. We need to have, and this is why land use planning is so important. This is why I'm so passionate about the fact that, you know, it is critical that we get to a point where the recommendations that have been made in the World Bank's studies recently, as well as what was in the legislation since 2004, which is that land use planning and building permits should be devolved to the local councils. It is critical that this is done, because it's only at the local council level that you'll be able to say, here, no construction. Because you know that the lack of trees in this area, you know you're protecting a water catchment, and you're close enough to the issue to not walk away. Because when there's no water, you're called upon, you know? The people will be crying, council, we not get water, we not get water. But if the water sources are being destroyed and you can't control that, it makes it very challenging. So I'm looking forward to seeing the implementation of those recommendations now that, you know, external bodies have reinforced that what was in the Act needs to be implemented. You know, I believe it will happen soon.
Just
I hope.
A couple of days ago, I was with the World Bank country manager who says to paramount chiefs that why cut down a tree which has lasted for over 70 years and then plant another tree? How long will it take that tree to get back to the level of...
It's not just that how long will it take it, but you'll never get the primary forest again. When you cut our forest, you know, I was in Otamba Kilimbi a few years ago for Christmas with my family. We slept outside, you know, just in a hut under the stars. It was so beautiful. You saw the monkeys jumping from tree to tree. Literally saw the monkeys. On Christmas Day, we went on a canoe ride with the pygmy hippos. I haven't been there since, but a friend was there recently, and he was devastated to see the level of deforestation. This is our natural treasure. And when you cut those trees, you lose the biodiversity because you won't plant back the tree that was there. And that tree, you say 70 years, some trees are 300 years old. But we come back to the extreme heat and the things that we're doing. So something else that is important is the fact that even with our population in the city, the greening, that we have a tendency in Freetown to put concrete everywhere. You see people build their house and they make sure they don't leave one blade of grass to be seen. And even when we ask our teams to do the cutting of the grass, very often I have to come back and say, don't pull the grass out, just trim it. We need the green cover. And one of the things you may have seen along Hanabenka Street is that we're putting in a green space. So increasing our green spaces, and that's a challenge, because even this morning I got a message from the landscaper that community people, even though they can see that we're building a pergola, We're putting in grass. You know, there's planting. You've put the railings. They still bought garbage and put garbage there. So we've got challenges that we have to address, even to allow our residents or to encourage our residents to value green spaces and to protect them.
In itself, the message of the importance of the trees has gone out, you would say, but we still find people who perhaps aren't listening or they don't understand. They're still engaging themselves in deforestation. What have we missed that perhaps you would say, again, understanding the class of people who, especially for our forest, who are busy with deforestation for whatever livelihood activities, you would say perhaps the elites get the message, but how are we missing it that those people who cut down these trees as often as they can to make charcoal, to get firewood, they still do it?
So you've hit on a very important piece. So we've been doing some research on this, and it's actually data, you know, this is like fact, that 82% of Freetonians use charcoal, firewood to cook because people can't afford gas. Gas is imported, you know, it's expensive, they can't afford it. So the other thing that we're doing, which is so important, and it's something that we'll be showing to, you know, our colleagues who come, is it'll be one of the locations for our site visits, because we're going to be showing them the different things that we've done as we hear from them what they're doing. One of the very important things we've done is working on the fecal sludge treatment plant. So King Tom. So at King Tom, you know, and we've done all the research, we've got the technology. We're really struggling to get the machines. We had hoped to have the machine in country last year. We still haven't even started the procurement process because it's proving very difficult to, on a pricing level, to be able to get what we need for the price that we have, for the budget that we have at the moment. But we'll get there because we are determined. And what is it? And how does it speak to what you've just said, Fabian? For those who've not seen the video and for those who've not been to King Tom, what you'll see is that first, it's important to note this. Before I was mayor, I find it hard to believe myself that we had no wastewater treatment plant. That literally what came out of the toilets went into a vacuum truck, went to King Tom and was emptied on the ground. So if I've done nothing else, you know, recognizing the challenge that that poses to health and to well-being, our approach has always been develop a plan, implement the plan, find the funding for the plan. We are not donor driven in the sense that we're not sitting here and somebody says come do this and we do it. No. Thankfully, what we've been able to do is to bring heads together, work with everybody, all our stakeholders, our residents being number one, but then also with MDAs, with donor partners, with development partners, to articulate a problem statement and design solutions. And one of the problem statements that we articulated back in 2019, 18 through to 2019, was the fact that our liquid waste was a health hazard. So in building the first ever wastewater treatment plant, we started the journey, which has now collided with the deforestation issues. Because when we did the wastewater treatment plant, the idea at the time was not to produce a cooking alternative. It was simply to safely dispose of the fecal sludge. But then we found we had this material, and you know, big credit to two of my colleagues who now work with me. They were at Goal at the time for investing in the technology, in the ideas, and testing it out. And Pius and Andruga. And today we have the technology. It's not like we designed it for the first time, but this is appropriate technology for our context. How do we do it here in Freetown? And we're now able to use that fecal sludge, as you've seen, to make briquettes. And we're waiting on the machinery to do that at scale. But that has also triggered a few more things which will help us with the deforestation. Let me quickly say that Goal had one of their donor partners in country recently, and they came and met with us, and they're very excited, and they want to help us to make it bigger. Also, the World Bank have also seen it, and they're like, this works. We can do this. So they've also committed to work with us to optimize, i.e. to make it more efficient, the way we're doing it, because this was a very, low-tech solution that was designed in country. They're going to work with us. They're sending us a consultant over to help us make it more efficient. And great news, they're also committed to having us build another wastewater treatment plant in the east end of Freetown. So this is how we help people. We bring to market something which you can use to cook, which isn't a tree. So that's really critical, because we have to have those alternatives.
With the weather condition, the Harmattan season, usually we would be enjoying the
cool.
Would be enjoying the cool of it.
Yeah.
We're not over the last couple of years. This is even a pointer. It's evidence to perhaps those who did not believe or understand, even maybe making it much easier to communicate to the people, this is the impact of what you're doing. How is it that the message is still not there? Have we been using the wrong approach?
So let's take a couple of other examples. How many messages do you see and hear every day of people being told that smoking is bad for them? Do they not smoke? How many messages do we have? Right now, we're about to talk about the drug pandemic. Do we not still see it? Changing human behavior is not simple. But what we need more than just messages. We need consequences. I'm really keen on us moving to a place where in places like Tanzania, Kenya, the UK, you don't cut a tree without having permission from the council. You cannot. It's against the law. And there are consequences if you break the law. We're trying to put in a bylaw for sanitation. We're waiting. It's been gazetted. We're waiting on it to still go to Parliament. Once that's gone through, the next bylaw we want to work on is an environmental bylaw. At the local level, we appreciate that national government has policies and legislation at the national level, but the ability for us to, at the local level, have sanctions, take action, is very limited without us having our own bylaws. So, Fabian, I really understand what you're saying. We see it not just with deforestation, we see it with sanitation. We have the laws there. Policing, when you have an environment in which there's impunity on many fronts, on many levels, for many things, it affects attitudes. And it's cultural. Where you have a society where there's law and order, people don't need to know that someone is watching them. It becomes something that they choose to do because they know there'll be consequences. There's that chance that if they're caught, something will happen. So I think that's what we have to work towards, as a society as a whole, for us to have a society where impunity is not the order of the day.
Mayor, on a national level, do you think it's high time we commence thinking of having alternative teas that will be meant specifically for coal burning rather than the aversive nature in which it is being done?
Alternative trees?
Yes, having trees that have been, of course, planted specifically. So these trees are for coal burning. And then other trees will be
for coal purposes.
Coal purposes specifically.
Yes,
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. We're not going to, even with the fecal sludge treatment plant, it's not going to provide cooking fuel for the entire city.
Sure.
And if you look at something like what Myro Forestry, because I've been up there, looked at their processes, gotten some ideas, even about the way in which they do their tree planting, because they do it for commercial purposes. Sure. They have offcuts, which they use for charcoal. So there are ways in which, if there's a national commitment to protecting our forest, there are ways in which these issues could be addressed. But Samuel, the starting point is for the right conversations to be had. So the conversation we're having here is a conversation that needs to be elevated. It's a conversation that needs to be had by policymakers at the national level, and then solutions found. You know, things are not easy anywhere in the world, but we see solutions being found and advanced. I think that expression, where there's a will, there's a way, comes to mind. We need to do something. As Fabian said, it's Hamatan now. I remember, just a few years ago, Hamatan, people would be wearing jumpers. You know, my parents live in Hill Station. They've never had air conditioning. Never, they've never needed it. Because it was so cool. I remember looking, when we were younger, in the veranda, it would all be just mist, and it would be cold, you know, or at least cool. But we're losing that, and it's a combination, because you've got the global warming, that's a global phenomena, but then they've got the localized action, which is making the global phenomena worse for us. So we've got to act, and we're acting, but we need to act. I think there has to be a broader national drive, but in Freetown, we are acting.
You did mention strategies to ensure the wetland is being rehabilitated through the mangrove planting that you're currently doing in the east end of Freetown.
Not just east, Kube is,
yes,
and Koku Bay.
But again, have you had time to visit Crab Town?
Which of the crab towns?
The one
Lumley?
Aberdeen Lumley.
Yes.
Have you had time to visit Crab Town?
Yes.
It looks more like an eyesore.
Yes.
Massive
dump site.
Dump site could be one.
Site.
But again, massive construction work is ongoing there.
So
I went there to do a story. I met community people where we're doing surveillance. You know, they were selling the land. Selling
water.
Selling water. Yes, selling water.
Let's get it right.
Are you concerned? Because
very concerned.
You spoke of the blue economy, carbon credits, which is the new gem hanging up for countries like Sahel to benefit. Are you worried about what's ongoing in those localities? So this is why I said
this conversation is a conversation that needs elevation at national level, and national policies need to be put in place. We have seen, because I don't know if you've looked at our Transform Freetown, Transforming Lives agenda. My bag is over there. But you'll see that there's a page in which we show a Google Earth image of Cockle Bay over a period of years. And we have a line, so you have the community, it starts in 2015, and then you have a line in the sea. And then what you see year after year after year is literally that line being filled in. And as you said, you saw people selling, you called it land. Let's not fool ourselves. They are not selling land. They are selling our lagoon. They are selling a prized heritage property. That is supposed to be a Ramsay site. You know, this is, Ramsay is this World Heritage for wetlands. It's supposed to be protected land, or protected wetlands. The fact that you actually have sales of that, it's significantly challenging. It's deeply disturbing, because we are losing, not just, you said it's an eyesore, it's more than an eyesore. We're losing our breeding ground for fish. We are losing our oysters. We are losing, you know what we're also losing? We're losing our beaches. You know why? Because that land, do you know how it's made? Samuel, you know how the land is made? With garbage, with plastic. You see the trucks, the tricycles, offload and bank. So it's the garbage that goes down first. Then it's compacted, and then soil is put on top. This is how this land is created. And guess what? That garbage moves. It moves into the water. It goes with the tide, and then it lands on Lumley Beach. It lands on Tokyo Beach. It lands on Laka Beach. So we're destroying our tourism potential as well. So it is deeply disturbing. And it's something that sadly the council is not in a position to address, because we don't have land sales or water sales powers. We don't have land use planning. We can't say, no, you can't do that. And we don't have building permits. So we can't stop the people from building in these places. Are you just looking at the picture of Juku?
Sure.
Yeah. So you can't, it is deeply disturbing, but it's something we must address. It's something we must address. We can't sit back and watch our future being destroyed.
The Minister of Lands mentioned sometime last year that they were working on devolving some of these responsibilities to the councils, you know, in the area of giving out permits to people who would want to build. How has that collaboration agreement gone so far?
It's not been implemented yet. We're very aware of the conversations. There are meetings, as I said. There's a World Bank project which has really highlighted the significance and the urgency of this being done. The minister has been very positive in saying that it's going to happen. Somebody said to me the other day, Mayor, the horse has bolted. Even if you get the permission, even if you get the power now, it's too late. The damage has all been done. And I know that it can feel that way, but I believe that even now, there is still hope. There's still work that can be done. Construction is happening every day. So if we can control what would have happened tomorrow and ensure that somebody is not building in the middle of a stream, in the middle of a waterway, is not doing what Samuel just described, literally build. I mean, the lagoon in Aberdeen is almost gone. Very soon, if nothing changes, you'll be walking from Cockle Bay to Lumley Beach on land, created land, made of garbage.
What we've seen is the capital itself, the population is on the increase.
Hugely.
Registered vehicles are on the increase. Poor planning has led us to...
No planning.
Well, you could put it at that. Has led us to a grave inconvenience and injustice as well on residents in the capital.
Absolutely.
Parking is a massive challenge. There are so many buildings, especially in the central business district, and there is no parking lot provision made for the people who work at those buildings or people who come there to do businesses. So for the official parking lots, if you're going to the CBD, where do you really park? That is a severe inconvenience. Yet people go and park, their vehicles are clamped when provision for parking is not made.
So Fabian, the reason why building permits are such an important part of urban management. So when you say urban management, you're talking about all the aspects of running a city, the transport issues, parking issues, trading issues. The reason why you work on this as a package and you don't split it up and send different bits to different organizations is because you need a comprehensive solution. So in any other country, any other city that I can think of, you know, if you want to build any construction, particularly a high-rise building, the first thing that you must demonstrate in order to get your building permit is what are your parking arrangements. You don't build a building and just expect the parking to be magicked, which is why you see people having to build underground car parks, build car parks and parking within their structures, make arrangements next door. The onus is on the developer to ensure that whatever structure they're building and bringing into the city comes with parking. And it's a comprehensive engagement because you are responsible for parking as the local council, you are responsible for building permits, you therefore make sure you join the dots. In a situation where as we have here in Sierra Leone, in Freetown, where as the mayor, I can tell you, I have no idea what's being built in the city. You will know when I know, I will know when you know, when I see the building. I don't know what the arrangements are for parking.
There is gentrification ongoing in the city,
but
so that in itself can be hope. So how can we make the correction as we go forward?
So this is why I'm saying, and I said earlier, that I'm so excited and hopeful that the conversation will move very quickly to implementation. There are two things that are happening which should help to an extent. But the most fundamental is for us to ensure that we don't continue to have more buildings coming in with no thought given to what the parking arrangements are, because you can't fix it after the event. So that should happen. That change needs to happen. And even if the Ministry of Lands are giving the building permits, it should be even between now and when they devolve to us, this should be part of the criteria. If you're going to build even a 5-story building, let alone a 10-story building, whatever you're building, provide an answer to the question, what are the parking arrangements? Provide off-street parking. Use some of that space you use for the office for the parking. It's your responsibility. We'll put that to one side. What is it we're doing, even though we don't have the building permit mandate at the moment and therefore cannot, provide that holistic response? The first thing we're doing is we're now in the process. It took a while, but huge thanks to my colleague mayor, Corinne Mach, the mayor of Zurich, who has been super supportive when I discussed with her the challenges we have with the Central Business District going into decline. And that decline is caused by a number of things. One is, the widespread street trading. Two is what you've just described, the inability to park. So if you know that your visitors to your office can't get parking, you might just choose to take your office somewhere else. So we've seen that move out of the city. And what we're doing now with the funding that we've secured from Zurich, City of Zurich, and thank you to the residents of Zurich for agreeing to do this, is a 5-year program of regeneration of our Central Business District. We might do it in a shorter time frame, but that's the envelope we're working to. And what does that involve? Number one, parking. So there's conversations going on now. It's been interesting because, again, it's the fragmentation. So we want to do controlled parking, so the sort of parking you see in other countries, where you have the bays pre-marked, where you have the meters. We wouldn't use meters in the same way because of the challenges with Sierra Leone. The meter might disappear, and be melted for pots, like what happens to our litter bins. But we will have a system, probably a mobile money system, for paying for parking, an on-demand parking system. Now, I don't know any other country, including Monrovia, or any city, including Monrovia, including Banjul, including Kanifing, including Accra, where the city is not responsible for parking. Okay. But here we have SLRSA, who also have it in their act that they're responsible for parking. So what's held us up a little bit is negotiations between ourselves, SLRA and SLRSA. But I believe we've agreed on something now, and we are working to implement, funded by FCC with funding from Zurich, a controlled parking zone in the Central Business District by the end of this year.
Her Worship, we've talked a lot about heat, forests, and many other things. But again, let's now talk a bit about drugs and its impact on the youth. Have we as a nation, or have stakeholders, actually taken the fight against drugs on youth in country seriously? Well,
I think there's a lot of room for improvement. I think there's a huge amount of room for improvement. I've been mayor since 2018, and so I've been in a position where I see maybe more than other people see, because maybe you'll come across a corpse on the street, occasionally. I know about them every day. And I've seen the increase, literally, I would say probably from about 2022 is when we began to see, just more and more evidence of the impact of this drug pandemic on our youth. And the most striking and most painful is the dead bodies on our streets. And what is so sad is the normalization of what should be an outrage. A normalization to the point that I'll just get a call or a message on my phone, Mayor, body day front and post office or nafogo pikam. That's a life. That's somebody's child, somebody's brother, somebody's sister, somebody's mother or father. And now it happens so frequently that people aren't shocked anymore. And that's scary. And what's also scary is when you engage with those who, because I called a roundtable some time back and we're still committed to supporting institutions and organizations who've made it their business to reach out to young people with these messages, to support families. I've had a mother on the phone with me at 6 a.m. for like an hour crying. I don't know, one day. She got my number and she was like, can you help me? I've lost my son. And these are just 1-2 stories, but this is an epidemic. And on this 5th or 6th of April last year, His Excellency the President announced a national emergency, declared that there was a substance abuse crisis when we had a number of reports. I think there was an BBC Africa Eye. There were a number of reports that were done in the international media that really shone the spotlight on how desperate this situation is. But from then to now, there isn't really that sense that there is urgent action being taken. And clearly, where you see this now sort of morphing into conversations which go just beyond Kush, and you're hearing more about cocaine, seizures of cocaine at those volumes. And I was on Facebook the other day, and I just was watching some comments, and somebody said, "Snowflake, storm boku na di tong," and then there were laughs and lots of comments about the white stuff. That is not what we want for Sierra Leone. It's not what we want for Freetown. So I think, yes, a lot more needs to be done. A lot more needs to be done.
How damaging is it for Sierra Leone to have been brought under the microscope for not just Kush, but at the moment, even cocaine?
So I've been in a position where the conversation we spent the best part of the last hour discussing has been what has taken me onto international stage. I ran for mayor because I was concerned about the environmental impact on my city. I've never been in politics before, but I cared about what was happening. I cared about what was happening to the environment and consequently what was happening to the people. And that's why I became mayor. So that's why I've perhaps had this opportunity to share this story and to share the interventions, because I've been razor focused on making sure we get something done. We went out with Freetown, the Tree Town, planting 1 million trees. We're now at 1.277 million trees. And we've taken our target to 4 million. Why am I saying that? Because our spotlight, the spotlight of the city, has been Freetown, the Tree Town. We're internationally known to the extent that, to God be the glory, I was awarded the German Africa Prize 2024 last year, one individual on the whole continent. Why am I saying this? I'm saying this because I want to get balance. I want to say that there are multiple stories. This is hugely damaging, and I really feel sorry for the impact we're likely going to have when we travel with Sierra Leonean passports. The way we're going to be treated, the way we're going to be viewed, the way we're going to be searched, because of a perception. And of course, that perception is not true of the vast majority of Sierra Leoneans, but it's what people will see. But like I said in the piece that I wrote the other day, we can turn this around. How? We must turn this around. The government. Someone put a post and sent me a message and said, so what are you going to do? And I said, well, the airport is national, the seaports are national, the security sector are national, our borders are national. So what am I going to do? Support. I'm going to support. I'm going to continue to say that we are ready to collaborate. Tell us what can be done. Where can a council fit in? Perhaps from our perspective, our biggest space is the messaging, to talk to our young people. But the real closing of the flow of these drugs is a national issue. And what will we do? We will continue to remind all of those who are in the places where this work has to be done that they should do it, because our future is at stake. Have you ever been, Samuel? Have you ever been to a Kush Pot? Have you ever been, there's a place in Tengbe Town. You walk in the middle, and I mean, there are so many of them. I mean, I can think of one in Colbert. Literally, they are like zombies. You see girls, their bodies are ravaged. You know, they've got no future, and not long after that, you'll see them lying lifeless on the corner of a street, and not even the dignity of a cover. Sometimes somebody will just put a piece of cardboard box over them. That is not the future that our youth deserve. That is not the future. And drugs don't come from the sky. They don't come from the sky. They come from somewhere.
I worship. Things seem much more deep-rooted than the easiest of way you put in it as to finding solutions to same. It seems much more deep-rooted. Yeah.
What do you mean?
I mean, of quite recently, we've seen the names and people who have been called, who have been associated to these drugs. I mean, the whites, you're talking about. It seems much more deep-rooted. So, it seems not too easy as the way you put it in finding solutions.
So I think, like we said when we talked about the trees, where there's a will, there's a way. Mm-hmm. At the end of it, yesterday I was talking to an elderly woman, a dear friend of mine, and she was sharing with me a WhatsApp post. I'd seen it, but you know, she was sharing with me, and I was like, yes, I couldn't agree more. I don't know if you guys have seen it. There's a post right now that's going around that shows people in a graveyard. So you have the graves all open and the skeletons sitting upright. And the caption says, I'm looking very hard, but I can't tell who's the richest among them. I'm looking very hard, but I can't tell who the most educated is among them. I'm appealing to consciences and saying to people, we are all going to die. We are all going to go 6 feet under, and we're taking nothing with us. We have an obligation. We have a responsibility to do the best we can to help humanity whilst we are alive, to make the lives of other people better, not worse, to ensure that young people have the chance to also fulfill their potential. If your wealth is based on the death and destruction of others, is that wealth that's worth having? It's not. So I come back and I say again, Samuel and Fabian, this is not rocket science, and it's not magic. It's decisions.
There are many messages we have on our Facebook page currently, and we need to read out some of those so you can respond and round off this segment of the program. Abubakar Rashid is asking, Madam Mayor, what are you doing about the young men washing vehicles in the streets? It is really disturbing. They will splash water without having any concern about passers-by. Also, parking at the Metro Police not working because these boys are doing their work.
I don't understand the last bit.
The parking, that the Metro Police are not doing their work. The boys on the streets, you know, those who help you with the parking.
Don't help us, so they help themselves. But I'll answer.
Continue, Fabian.
Okay. Swissman says, climate change is natural, Mayor. We're seeing the endless effort you're making, but the problem is money. We know that you don't have enough funds to solve some of these problems that occur in the country. How long are you going to take to succeed in all of these project plans when there is no sufficient fund in council? Don't you think government should support you to afford some of the equipment that council needs to do the planting and trimming of trees? Because some trees need trimming instead of cutting. Secondly, Mayor, do you know that building permit is very difficult to have in the ministry, and because of building permit is difficult to have, that's why some people are building without building permit to secure the land, regardless of the kind of structures they are constructing.
Fuad Sali Koroma says, Her Worship, what will you do for us living at Mount Torel? We find it difficult to have access to water, and this area is a catchment area.
Mosdi says, hang on, the burning of charcoal itself is not contributing to the global warming crisis. Or is there a safe charcoal burning that doesn't do more harm to the environment? Another thing, how worried are you with the proposed action by the newly elected President of the United States to pull out of the Paris deal? It is very important for local actors to be prioritized, but if international and specifically the gigantic carbon polluters like the United States having a government that is planning to undo the progress done by the previous administration, is the fight against climate change going to even be a serious challenge?
Abubakar Rashid says the mayor is saying that they've planted so many trees. Can she show us areas that they've planted these trees apart from those trees that were shared some time ago?
Jaja says, Madam Mayor, please let's hear about how you can transform Freetown, the capital city of Sierra Leone. You are not over there to talk about cocaine or any other drugs for now. We will invite you next time for you to come and talk about drug abuse in the country. Thank you.
Mosdi says, Samuel, don't try to draw weight between the mayor and the central government. This government has become more defensive, and I worry that if the mayor says anything sensible to curtail this national tragedy in the context of the state of the youth becoming victims of this quote-unquote substance, and a national disgrace with our country's name being trashed on the global media.
Mosdi says, it is refreshing to see someone coming prepared with data. Now let's walk the talk and get things done for the better. Protecting and preserving our environment is of the utmost importance in this challenging global warming era. All hands on deck approach for the immediate, medium and long-term action plans.
Amen. James Vincent Sisi says, more grace in your expression. We're seeing the manifestation in all that you're saying.
My last pick is from Abubakar Rashid. He's asking, the mayor is saying that they have planted so many trees.
I've just gone through that one.
Oh, okay, thanks, Samuel. Swissman says, Mayor, before you go, let me ask you this question quickly, Madam Mayor. Since the funeral arrangement of one of your staff, Fatu Kama, and since the matter is in court, what is the outcome of the matter in court and where is the accused?
Finally, from mine is from Osam Conte, who says, Aki-Sawyerr, bring the cable car you promised the people of Freetown. I think those are the messages we could take for now.
Yes,
and see
your
ways to
response,
respond and we wrap up the segment.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So, with regards to the young men washing vehicles in the street, yeah, that's a constant issue, the illegal car washes. And again, just in terms of who's responsible, we have a rule, but SLRSA are the ones responsible for removing abandoned vehicles and preventing things like that. So it's a joint process. And it's a work in progress because, as has been mentioned, with a huge increase in population, one of the things we're also seeing is just the mass of bodies looking for economic and productive activities on the street. So it's a challenge. To the person saying that the boys doing the parking, no, they don't work for us. Those guys work for themselves. But as we're moving into this new system of controlled parking in the CBD area, they are one of the constituents that we're going to be engaging to ensure that we find some way of bringing them on board, so that the jobs are created for them, but within a structured framework that council will be running. Somebody asked about Mount Oriole and the lack of water. Mount Oriole is such an interesting community. For those who don't know it, it is above the hillside bypass, going between Mountain Court and or Macaulay Street, and actually Mountain Court, and the Works Yard going down to Blackhall Road. And the thing about Mount Oriole is it's a huge community, and it's a fantastic example of the dangers of not planning, because Mount Oriole has no road access. Mount Oriole has no water provision. And yes, to the specific question, I will do color. I'm going to go look. I just mentioned that we have 45 more water kiosks being constructed this year, in addition to the 44, but those 44 are in 3 specific communities. I will look and see if Mount Oriole is among them, and if it isn't, I will explore what the possibility is. So caller, hope to get news, or hope you'll get news of that from your community. Somebody talked about the fact that we have limited funds. You don't give up because you have limited funds. You continue to find ways of generating more revenue. And on that note, can I please remind Freetonians that property rates and business licenses distribution starts next week. So please, as we all want to see a better Freetown, a transformed Freetown, let's all remember we have a role to play. We all have a responsibility. So caller who was concerned about the funds, please do ensure that you pay your property rate, you pay your business license as applicable, and you certainly pay your local tax. And in the meantime, we continue to successfully, engage alternative funding means, funds that are earmarked to support the climate change agenda particularly. Somebody said building permits are hard to get, which is why they build without building permits. And I think that comes back to my point, that this is something that needs to be devolved, needs to be decentralized. Because for you to get building permits nationally from one institution would definitely be challenging. So if I need a building permit, I'm in Koidu, and I have to go to the Ministry of Lands, as well as the person in Waterloo, as well as the person in Sussex, and the person in Crew Bay, it's a challenge. But if you decentralize and evolve, and Connor Council is issuing its building permits, Bow City Council is issuing building permits, McKinney is issuing the building permits, Freetown is issuing building permits, then building permits will be issued, and we will have more success with being able to control development in our urban and rural areas. The person who said charcoal burning doesn't contribute to global warming, if I could just explain, actually it does, but our volumes are so small that they're insignificant at the global level, but they are significant locally. So how does it contribute? First of all, you're cutting down a tree. You're cutting down trees, and trees provide a carbon sink. They remove carbon from the atmosphere. They provide us with oxygen. They cool our environment. They provide shade. So they're all the reasons why you shouldn't cut down a tree. But the charcoal burning itself, I'm not sure if you realize, again to the caller, we actually have among our top 4 diseases, killer diseases in our country, is chronic respiratory disease. That's because women are inhaling carbon when they are cooking. From the charcoal and from the wood. So it's actually not a great thing. It's something that we have to manage. We've talked earlier on about alternatives, affordable alternatives through the fecal sludge, through the we didn't even talk about, but we also have the biogas that we're piloting, going directly from the toilets and using that to the biogas itself to light generators and light cook stoves, etc. So we have these alternatives that we're promoting. So on a national level, sort of at an international level, no, we're tiny. We're not moving the dial at all, not even as a continent, but at a domestic level, at a local level. The reduction of trees results in landslides, results in flooding, results in increased heat, and the use of charcoal is also not healthy. So we are keen to transition from that. Somebody talked about the Paris Agreement and the pulling out of the United States government. The United States government pulled out when President Trump was president the first time, and 400 mayors reaffirmed their commitment to the Paris Agreement, and that's happened again. So all the C40 mayors, I'm co-chair of C40 cities, all the C40 mayors, Global Parliament of Mayors, and all other mayoral organizations in the US have said we are staying in, and at their city levels, they actually have the powers and the regulations to continue to make those differences. And importantly, Mayor Michael Bloomberg has also stepped forward and committed to providing the $90 million budget that the American Climate Change Organization requires. He is going to fund that. So yes, the Trump administration has come out, but there are other parties who are committed to the fight against climate change who are very much in. To the question about where are the trees, again, I will share with you the digital platform that you can go to see the trees. The trees are tracked. They have unique identifier numbers. I'm sure Samuel and Fabian have seen this now. You can actually see each tree. And there are areas where, just down here, if you come into AYV, you're at AYV. Going to the Guma compound, just beyond AYV, we've planted over 1,000 trees there. Kamayama, where the mudslide was. So if you're interested, please just go to fcc.gov.sl, and I will make sure, give me till tomorrow, because I'm not sure I've getting the link right, because I know that we have a website for the trees. I'm not sure if it's on fcc.gov.sl, but I'll make sure we link it. So tomorrow, go check. I'm sure I'll get the guys to do it by tomorrow. Somebody said, I'm not here to answer questions about illegal substance abuse. Well, I was asked questions, and therefore I'm answering the questions that I was asked. And someone said it's time to do the walk. I think we're doing the walk. And I think what this tells me is that it's really important for us to continue to share with Freetonians so that they realize that when I talk about, mangoes being planted at Krube, you can go see them. When we talk about green spaces at Bankakoka Street, you can go see them. When I say we're handing over 12 boreholes with water filters, a treatment next week, you can see them. We start on Friday, we do the rest on Monday. These are real. So I think that's probably what you mean by walking the talk. So yeah, we can confirm that that's what we're doing. And the question about my late dear colleague, Sia Kamara, the matter is in court. The judge has been changed, so the court processes are starting again, and the accused is in custody. And the final one was the cable car. So really great progress with the cable car. We have had offer of financing, and we have now, this is something that needs to be accepted at the government level, a national government level, because it's coming from another country government, and that document is currently with the Minister of Finance, and we're waiting for his feedback. We also have 2 other institutions that are looking at assessing it to come in with the difference that's required. So we are waiting. We've done all the work, we've done all the feasibility study, we've joined the dots, we've gone out, looked for the finance. We are bringing that finance together, but this is not a project that can be done in isolation. This has to be done at the national level, and so we're very happy that we had a very successful meeting with the Minister of Finance before Christmas, and that he's now got the documents on his desk, and we look forward to getting a positive response from him in due course. So that's where we are with the cable car, and I think that's answered the questions that you gave me.
All right, Mayor, please continue to stay with us. We would have to touch on more issues before you leave, and we would now have to continue the conversation. Coincidentally, just moving away from business, some of the business owners complain that the property rate delivered to them this year has some miscalculations. Could you speak to that, please?
Okay, thank you, Fabian. So we haven't done distribution of demand notes yet for property or business, but for business owners particularly who come into council looking to get their business license early, unfortunately, yes, we discovered that when we did the tax cycle switch, so the end of every year, using our mob tax system, there's something called a tax cycle switch. You basically close 2024 and open for 2025, and it brings in your arrears. There was an error in a couple of the figures of the mill rates. That's the factor that's used to do the calculation, not to be too technical, but literally there was an error. And thankfully, this has come to our attention. It caused some consternation with some business users, but we have put out a public notice. I believe it's been put out already. If it's not, it will be put out today, because we had to figure out what the issue was. So we sat with the developer, we sat with the project teams, we've understood what the issue is, and it's being rectified. And that will take a few days. So for business users, business license holders, we're appealing you to just be patient with us. We want to make sure you are charged the correct amount, and that, you know, the concerns that were raised are being addressed. So it was a technical error which is being fixed.
Let's talk about the revenue generating scheme of council, how effective it is.
So I think I'm super proud. If there are things that I look back on and I think these were game changers, you know, under Yvonne Aki-Sawyerr, we really moved the needle. One of them is our property rate system and revenue generation. So when I came into council, the system was manual. It was physical, it was just a book, and we only had about 30,000 properties that were covered, which meant there was injustice. Because for all Freetonians, why should just a small number of property owners pay tax and nobody else does? So bringing in a digital system, which actually, you know, uses satellite images, so we're able to update satellites. So we've updated the satellite this year. So that means we see all the properties, using roof measurements, and automating the system. So you can now come, and if there's a problem with your question, with your demand note, we can look on the system. You can see everything that goes into your calculation. So there's that transparency, and of course there's universality. So there's equity because everybody is required to pay, and not just a few. So that's something I'm really proud of. And it also means that today, when we look at our budget calculation, 70% of our domestic budget, because of course we also have the funds that we get from, not personally get, because our donor funding typically comes through partners. So but what comes into council's budget, 75% of that is our own source revenue, with 25% coming from government. So very, very proud to have made that change from what it was when I came to what it is today. And that means that we're able to do things like, for example, in a couple of weeks, we will be taking you around with us to commission the cemetery fence that we've done at Ascension Town, Kissy Road, Akibabet School. We're finally going to be opening the multi-purpose center at Wilberforce Market. You know, we're doing bridges. We've done an assessment of all the markets, and we're going to launch a market repair program. I mean, these are the sort of things that you want us to be doing. Of course, sanitation costs a lot of money, and council pays most of that directly. So the issue of the business permits, the business license, the changes that we've seen, yes, we've had a little bit of a challenge. This time we will fix it. It's fixable, and we just ask for people to be patient. So in terms of revenue generation, the system is there. Compliance is another matter, and that's where Freetonians come in. So you know, Fabian, I'm going to come back to what you said earlier when you said we were talking about the deforestation. You said with all the information that's going out, people are still cutting down trees. And I gave examples of sanitation as one, where, I had to look at how much we were spending. And big thanks to our accountant, Marima Sire Mara, who has been really, really wonderful in making sure I have these figures at the tips of my fingers, and I asked her the other day, how much do we spend? Not what we get from donors, because the World Bank is supporting currently our sweepers. You know, we have about 700 people sweeping the streets every morning, but beyond that, you know, we collect garbage from the markets, we collect the public space waste, we have to do some particular areas, we have to do illegal dump site clearing, and on a monthly basis, including fuel and labor, we are spending about 218,000, that's an old money million, a month on sanitation. That does not include the about 1 billion old money that is spent not directly by us, through the World Bank project. We're very thankful World Bank for that support, because we used to do the street sweeping ourselves, but they're currently doing that's about $1 billion. It's like a 1.2 billion. And you know, we wouldn't need to spend all that money. We would be able to use that money for more development if Freetonians stopped putting their garbage on the street. If Freetonians stop dumping illegally. Now, we also know there's been a capacity issue.
Where should they put it?
We also know there's been a capacity issue. The collections, you know, we're putting out again, we called a meeting of all those who collect waste. The numbers have dropped, you know, and part of that challenge is because of the dump site. So you may remember that for a long time, Mayor was saying, we're going to have a new sanitary landfill in Hastings. Well, sadly, between the Ministry of Lands and the Ministry of Defense, they were not able to provide the land to the World Bank, and the World Bank has had to withdraw that funding. So we won't be having a new sanitary landfill in the short term. That's gone back to the drawing board. So that puts more pressure on us, because the old dump sites are really heavy on, really bad for the tires of the vehicles, of the tricycles and the trucks. So it means that the sustainability is challenged. We've looked at this. We've got the new bylaw coming in place, but we also have a new system for informal settlements. But I'm not going to say much on that now, because I want us to move forward with some activities before I announce it. The worst thing you can do is say something and then you have hiccups and they're like, Mayor, we don't say. As we were so excited about the landfill. It had gone so far, so many studies done, design done, to now find ourselves in a position where we've not been able to actualize that is really sad. But onwards and upwards, we must find other solutions, and we're working on them.
What was also helping us with sanitation was our monthly cleaning.
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. It was helping your perception,
monthly
but it was not.
Cleaning exercise.
It was not. Let me tell you why.
Why aren't we doing it?
Well, I'll tell you for one thing, it didn't help us at all. I'll tell you what the challenges were. Besides all of the corruption issues that were so famously captured in that video, when we were asking for evidence of trucks being utilized. When you tell people that collection of garbage is free, I've just told you what we're spending, 1.2 billion. You create a mindset where people don't believe they should pay. And that is dangerous. To date, you still have people take their garbage and put it in the middle of the street. You have to pay for waste collection because it costs money. And there's no magic to that. The other thing that happened is that people got into the habit of hoarding waste. They kept their garbage for a month. And then on the final day, you have literally a mountain. That is not how waste disposal is done anywhere in the world. The notion of communal cleaning is a good one, but it's one that has to come with structure. So if you say once a month, let's all clean our communities, our public spaces, and then let's ensure that that waste is collected and that is paid for. Government paid for those trucks. And we know that there are many challenges with the existence of the trucks, with the existence of the personnel. So there are lots of there are administrative things that need to be tightened. But ultimately, the message, unless government is collecting the money somewhere else, the reason it stopped was because they couldn't pay for it anymore. It's too expensive. You cannot do garbage collection for free. There's nowhere. If you look at your council tax in the UK, look at your council tax in the anywhere. Go to Ghana. You pay to have your garbage collected. Kigali, the model. What they do that once a month is not come and collect my household garbage. Garbage is collected every week in Kigali by waste collectors who are paid. Free garbage collection does not exist. Somebody has to pay somewhere. That's why I have a challenge with that model. You know, I do like the notion of a communal clean, but we need to have structures in place where there's some way of paying for that service.
Mayor, as we try to round off, what new bylaws are you introducing, you as a mayor of the council, introducing for 2025 so Freetonians can have a heads up on
the main
what's
one's going to be the sanitation bylaw, because actually doing bylaws take a while. So we've been working on this for a number of years and it's been gazetted. We're waiting for the Minister of Local Government to lay it in Parliament. We hope that will happen soon. I'm sure it will. And we will see with that a whole new system for sanitation. But that's going to require an entire program, Vivian and Samuel. So do invite me again and we'll speak about it then.
Thank you very much, Mayor. It's been a pleasure having you here this morning to talk about all the things we've, talked about.